everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report. Today's guest is four-time Mr. Olympia, Honorary Ambassador to the Mr. Olympia, now living in Las Vegas, location of Mr. Olympia, but keep in mind he's originally from Sterling, Massachusetts, the greatest commonwealth in this great nation of ours. Jay Cutler, how are you, sir?
Little history of Sterling, Massachusetts. You know, that's where Mary Had a Little Lamb nursery rhyme was derived from. You know that, right?
No.
Yeah, we have the statue of the lamb in the middle of our common.
Wow.
And it's Mary Sawyer. The lamb followed her to school, and that's where that nursery rhyme was derived from. So famous things from Sterling, Mass.
Yeah.
Mary Sawyer and Jay Cutler.
Now you had a farm, I know that.
Yeah, my brother still has 60 cows actually.
Wow.
And we have pigs and everything over there, chickens, and my dad's 90 now.
Wow.
And they still put him on the tractors, and they do a lot of haying and everything, so he's still running the tractors over there, which is crazy.
Wow.
But my brothers do concrete. You know, that's a big business, is a concrete, and that's how I kind of got started in professional bodybuilding. Was, you know, I did that from 11 to 18, and that's how I really built my physique. And that's when I joined the gym at 18. I already had a solid physique because of that work.
Yeah.
So when I got into weight training, my body just kind of blew up. But that's kind of the history of, you know, where I came from. Blue collar work ethic. You know, a lot of those guys out there.
There's the most famous picture I remember you as a teen before you got into bodybuilding. I think you were 18, and you had an entire picnic table. You know what's funny? I was on one shoulder.
I was I want to say I was 16 there, Ron.
Jeez. Big.
Yeah, I used to carry the picnic table around my shoulder, you know, because I used to carry those concrete forms.
Unbelievable.
And those things were 80 pounds a piece. You know, I'd carry two at a time and just sling it up on my shoulder, my arm.
Wow.
And, I'll be honest, I always had a bicep deficiency on my right side. People always talked about it. And it really stemmed from because I used to carry the forms, and when I would carry those forms, the wood would go against my arm. And it actually, so I was so young carrying those forms, I think it really affected, like, right where my brachialis is from carrying those forms like that.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
When did you figure that out?
Well, I mean, if you look through my career, you know, it's always was shaped different. But when you're 11 years old and you're carrying those forms, and every day, day in, day out, you're doing it. I was doing it after school and whatever. But it made my muscle fascia stretch different, you know. So it didn't actually have the same look as the left side.
Wow.
So it's kind of crazy. I know people talked about that through my career, but that stemmed from that. Same thing with my leg. I always had a leg deficiency on one side, but I wore a cast from my ankle to my hip from breaking my kneecap in high school. And I remember my leg shrank so much, man. It was crazy. And when I got that, they probably, in this day and age, wouldn't cast your leg or hip to your ankle for a broken kneecap. You know, they have different methods now to recover. But it set my knee, and my knee wasn't placed straight. So that's why it always affected how I trained my legs. And the shape of my legs was different on the one side, you know, where I have the crazy striations on that one side.
Right.
Obviously, that's the side I did not break, you know. But you remember hearing the stories, lose a wick and all that stuff that about the big legs, right? I mean,
yeah, but I never knew about that whole cast situation and how that affected you.
Yep. Huh. Yeah, when I was 16, a lot of people don't know that, but that's a little history that you only get here on Muscular Development. Ron Harris, Ronline.
Thank you. So that's why the foot stump, the most famous Jay Cutler picture, that's the left quad out in front.
That's the left one, the bigger one. It's funny every day. Ron, someone just sent me that yesterday, and they're like, "Man, this is like it." Here it is. You know, it's 10 years later, right?
Yeah.
And we're going into this year's Olympia, and I sit in my house. You know, I was sitting as I was getting ready for this ambassador type thing, which kind of, you know, we'll talk about that kind of the role a little bit of, you know, what the expectations are of that. I mean, we kind of talked about what an ambassador is, but I thought about it and I'm like, damn, I haven't won the Olympia in 9 years. Can you believe it goes that? You're wearing a shirt right now that was the year. That was the year. That was like 08, 09. That was when I was getting ready for, you know, I started the heavy clothing brand in 2008. And it just blows my mind that it goes by that fast.
Yeah, I mean, I remember The first time I didn't meet you when you were just starting out. I met you a couple years later. Actually, no, I didn't meet you till I think it was the '95 Arnold Classic. You were in the front row with Chris Aceto, and you had like one of those plaid shirts for bodybuilders were in back then.
Yeah.
And you were just you were taking up like 3 seats because you were just so wide. I think you were like 20, probably 22, 23 at the time. And I was like, damn, this kid got big. Because I remember how big you had been as a teen competitor.
Well, you used to see pictures of me, right, when you worked for American Muscle, right?
Yeah.
But you were in California. When were you in California?
I was there from I lived there from January '91 until October 2000.
And you trained at Gold's Venice, right?
Fullerton, Venice, more so Venice, and then I stayed local to the Pasadena gym. But what year did you win? You came out and won Tournament of Champions. Was your first?
95, bro.
95.
It was August 19th, 1995. How's that?
What a memory. Was it your birthday or something?
No, but I had just turned 22 years old.
Didn't you just have a birthday?
It's coming August 3rd, actually.
Okay. Everybody's
Tom Brady and myself are on the same day.
Oh, geez. All right. Send your gift cards, everybody. I don't know what he wants. Maybe a Olive Garden or something. But
Right.
So, yeah, before we get into your Olympia history, just do talk a little bit about Honorary Olympia Ambassador. How did we approach to be this ambassador?
You know what? Dan kind of took over this. Dan Solomon came in and he wanted to get a little more involvement. And I think really, I've been involved. What people don't realize is the 20th anniversary of the Olympia in Las Vegas. It started in '99, just so you know. Yeah. So it was at Mandalay Bay. That was my first one.
Okay.
99.
99 it was in Vegas? Because Ronnie won his second.
He won in 98 in Madison Square, and then he came to Vegas and won the second one in 99. Okay, that's when Wheeler turned around on the stage after the award. He walked back to the backdrop, and he was upset about it because he was kind of like, I'm going to win this thing. I didn't win it in 98. So, Dan took it over. He came to me, and he said, listen, we want to do, we really want to try to boost this thing and get kind of like your stamp on it because obviously I'm out there promoting a ton now with, all my appearances and all my shows, and I'm everywhere. So I said, well, what do you expect me to do? And he said, listen, it's kind of your discretion. And I said, listen, I'd love to do media and try to get the other guys involved and get the hype running a little bit, and, kind of just build this thing so people want to experience not only the bodybuilding show, because remember when I came in '99, we were focused really on bodybuilding, men's and women's side. It wasn't a huge expo, if you remember, at Mandalay. It wasn't big at all.
Right.
And this thing's turned into a whole crazy, there's so many different things now, so many different personalities, and, social media has changed a lot of things. And I think now we're just looking at, okay, come to the Olympia weekend. It's not just, hey, come to the Mr. Olympia or Miss Olympia show. It's come to the Olympia weekend and experience all sorts of activities and different things. And, unfortunately, the show's in 2 different places, right? It's all the events for the major stuff is at the Orleans Arena, but you still have a lot of stuff going on at the Expo Hall. But most of the people come to experience the Expo and get to meet some of their role models, whether it be social media or competitive people, but also other sports like UFC fighters and, different personalities, but still fitness orientated. And I think really me being kind of like the person to kind of speak out and say, hey, you know what, come check this out. Being in Las Vegas, it's nice too. I mean, I'm here so I can do a lot of the local media. We had planned to actually do kind of a media tour leading up to this thing, which still isn't, right now we just had a few negative things that have happened around the show. So it's kind of right now it's been a rough few weeks with what's been happening, but obviously that's that's out of our hands.
Yeah. So I wanted to go year by year and just say a couple things about every year, because '99, that was your first Olympia. That was the first year I wasn't at you won Night of Champions, I think, the next year. I wasn't at your pro debut. The first time I saw you as a pro was earlier that season at the Pro Ironman. And you had improved so much since you won nationals. Just a little more size, but just the quality of the muscle, everything was a lot more polished. And I said, wow, Jay's actually, he's going to be a lot better than I thought he was. So you went to your first Olympia. 15th is not great, but you know it was tougher back. It was tougher lineups back then.
15 out of 16, Ron. I wanted to quit, but I thought my physique was. I mean, remember I was 25, so I mean I think the only guy I beat in that show was John Pierre Fuchs. If you remember, he finished 16th, I think, and you know, and people like Pablo Jablonecki were ahead of me, and I think even Matarazzo like placed ahead of me that year.
Wow.
But to stand on stage with those guys, it was tremendous. But I truly thought I trained in Worcester for that show. And then I migrated. Joe Weider moved me to California around Thanksgiving, the end of '99. And that's when I really buckled down. And I was actually waking up with a smile on my face every day for the first time in years, because obviously the weather in Mass wasn't really what I wanted to train in. It's not a bodybuilder's haven to go to the gym in the middle of snowstorms and everything else. And I knew like I was getting to that point in my career. So once I got to California, Ron, my career took off. I mean, I won the NOC, 7 months later, 2000. And then of course went to Olympia and placed 8th. And then after that, I never finished below 2nd until the last one. I finished 6th place in 2013, you know?
Right. So let's skip ahead to your big breakthrough at the Olympia was 2001. And it was one of those times where, you know, you'd placed 8th before. It was like, you know, like when Ronnie won. Nobody was expecting anything out of this Ronnie Coleman guy. I think he had been 8th the year before, too.
9th, yeah, 9th, yeah.
So, you know, you show up and walk out there, and everyone's like, oh, my God. Jay looks friggin' amazing. Just bone dry, tight waist, flaring quads, delts, everything. And that wasn't Ronnie's best. You know, Ronnie was a little bit off his game. And you actually did beat him at the judging. They had you ahead in points.
6 points.
Was it? I can't recall. Was it a 2-day show back then, or was it still 1 day?
It was I believe it was a 1-day show then. Yeah. So I won prejudging by 6, and then Ronnie came back at night, and he won by, I think, 9 points or something, or 3 points maybe. He made up 9 points total, which is, I don't know if it's actually possible or not, but.
I mean, how? Was there ever? Did you ever?
They said the posing round he made it up, and I think it was just they weren't ready to give it to me at that point yet, because I wasn't really proven, and then of course, you know, I kind of set the standard by going to the Arnold the next year and winning. But 2001 was kind of like I got this. Luckily, the draw. What people don't realize is, remember, there was only. Back then, the Olympia was only like 15 guys or 14 guys or 12 guys. I forget what it was, not 20-something. So you're right. It was a little stiffer to get in the shows. There were less shows to qualify, right? You weren't going to overseas shows and qualifying as much. So what happened is Ronnie and I drew consecutive numbers. So he was like, say he was 9, I was 10.
Yeah.
And we got to stand next to each other in the lineup. That was always my strong point, right? Standing with the abs and the quads and the shoulders. Although I didn't have the smallest waist, you know, Ronnie at that point started to get, you know, he didn't have the super small waist either, because he started putting on a lot more size. But I always had those chiseled abs, and it just, when I got sucked dry, I always had a really solid look. And fortunately, I was able to get the calls based on that. They couldn't really justify not putting me in the calls with Ronnie, because I was beating him in the standing relaxed pose. By that time, I was 260 on stage that year. So,
wow.
But you know what, Ron? I trained for that show with the mindset like, I don't care. I don't care what rules or regulations or whatever else, as far as like, I'm going to bring the physique that I want to bring, and I brought it.
It's funny you mention abs, because abs were the two things Ronnie never really was able to develop very well, and those are always two obviously very strong points for you. I mean, the front relaxed pose, you say your waist wasn't small, but I'll tell you, it was the fact that you were so wide. It gave an illusion of a very small waist. You know, you've often said you throw tape measures around things and it's not quite what you think they are, but it's the way things look.
Yeah, and that haunted me through my career was 2001, because everyone's like, man, if he could just get that look back, he would win everything, right?
Yeah.
And then I wasn't able to really duplicate similar physique until 2009. So it took me 8 years, you know, till when I won the Mr. Olympia, I was really big, but I was battling Ronnie at his biggest too, you know.
Right. So 2002, that was your first of 3 Arnold Classic wins in a row. I always got the impression, I don't know if I ever asked you this, did you for 2002, did you say, forget the Olympia, they're not going to let me win the Olympia or whatever, or I'm not going to come back to the Olympia until I know I can win it? Was that the mindset? Is that why you skipped the Olympia that year?
No, you know why I skipped it, Ron? Because if you recall, after 9/11 tragedy, they almost canceled there was talk that they were going to cancel the Olympia because it was in Vegas, and Vegas was under a huge terrorist threat at the time after the tragedy, right? It happened September 11th.
Right.
The Olympia was shortly after, and then they had high alert on Las Vegas or whatever. But I actually went to Vegas after the Christmas holiday, and I was training for the Arnold at the time because I'm like, screw it, if I can't win the Olympia, I'm going to go to the Arnold. I looked at it as like, okay, this is the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So I did the Arnold and I won that. But at the time that I started building a home in Las Vegas, and it finished in mid-July, my home. So I was able to move. I sold my place in Orange County, and I moved to Las Vegas. And I was in the midst of building my pool at the same time. Yeah. And there were people in my house every single day. And I knew going in, I bought 7 homes in 2002, 2003 in Vegas because the economy had shifted because of the terrorist attack. So I was just banging on business like crazy, and I said, you know what, I'm going to sit out this show. There's no reason for me to do it. I had a contract with a company, ISS, which is a company, and they said, listen, we don't care if you compete. We want you to do appearances anyway. So I was really booking appearances based off my last Olympia and the Arnold Classic victories. So I said, screw it, I'll just sit out this show. You know, back then it was 100K.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm looking at it as like, okay, I can go make 100K traveling doing guest appearances rather than compete and spend the money and the time to do that. So I looked at it as a financial decision. I was making money in the real estate stuff, you know. So I didn't look at it as like, okay, this is an advantage to me. I'm hot right now. If I go to this Olympia and I figured, okay, what am I going to have to do to beat this guy? I already beat him, and they're not going to give it to me. So I kind of just said, screw it. I'm going to sit out the show, and I'll focus on the Arnolds and go win the Hummers and the 100K there. It was more money for me because I was selling the trucks and investing in property with the money.
So you never kept any of those Hummers from the Arnold?
No, I sold them. I sold them all, man. I bought homes and land and got into commercial stuff after that.
I mean, they're not the most practical vehicles anyway. Let's be real.
Yeah. Well, remember, I had the first one in 2000. The one I won in 2002 was the first one on the West Coast. I remember they delivered it to the dealership. You know what's funny is they delivered to the dealership, and I remember going there excited, but then the guy that I sold it to, but prior, like it was already sold.
Yeah.
As soon as I won it, he picked it up from the dealership. I signed it right over to him. He picked it up. Flex Equipment, actually, Mark Nally. He bought
Mark
it from
Nally,
me.
Yeah, I know Mark.
Yeah. On Flex Equipment. And that was one of my endorsements at the time, and he wanted that H2 Hummer so bad. So they built it to specs, what he wanted, and I sold it.
Yeah, great equipment, man. Because that more so on the West Coast, the gyms. I know this is off topic, but. Man, I missed that equipment. The leverage stuff that he used to make.
Yeah,
it was fantastic.
Yeah, he designed all that stuff. They had Gold's Venice had a lot of that equipment.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it had a better feel than hammer strength, personally to me anyway. So, okay, you came back to Olympia in 2003, and 3 years in a row, second place. So which year do you think you came closest to beating Ronnie out of those 3 years that you took second? 03, 04, 05.
05.
The last one, yeah. I mean,
they did the challenge round stuff, those 2, 4, and 5, right?
That's right.
And then they got rid of it. So, you had Gustavo Bedell coming up, and I was in great shape in 05. I was a little downsized, but so was Ronnie. He was starting to get, they started telling him, I think, hey, trim it down a little bit. And he came in a little lighter, so did I. But I thought my condition was pretty solid. My back started to improve. And that's when Ronnie, he started to regress a little bit, I think. I mean, you know, out of anyone, you were training with him every year for his camp. I remember you used to go out and cover it when he used to have his tank, which was awesome, by the way. That was the best thing ever for the fans, you know.
Those were the days. Oh man.
So I saw a little regression, and I truly thought in '05 I had a closer show than what the outcome was. I'm actually looking at pictures on my wall right now from 2005, Flex magazine. But I was close, and I knew in '06 I had him on the ropes, and it was going to be my year, and that's why I predicted I would win the show.
So I personally believe you would never become as popular, as beloved by the fans if you had won the Olympia years before that. It was those 3 years battling Ronnie as an underdog. People love the underdog. As soon as you started winning, as always happens, that's when they start to turn against you. Because people, I don't know why, they don't want to see other people succeed. I guess at the core, that's unfortunately a human trait. But man, every year that you took second, it got more and more that you just got so much love from the fans, and not so much hate against Ronnie, but it's just they wanted you to win. They wanted you to win because you were this, you know, that people like to root for the guy that they think doesn't have the best genetics or had to work harder, or, you know, they saw something in you that they identified with. You know, are you glad you didn't win the Olympia earlier when you look back?
No, I wish I would have won earlier, because I would have probably stepped out of the business earlier and been doing. Listen, I mean, I've been retired 6 years, Ron, and I can promise you, I mean, I'm doing better in the business by giving back more now than when I was competing. Yeah. I think things have shifted also, and I transitioned from a magazine guy to a social media guy almost. But I think early on, I think I could have done a lot more with the title because of what it was. But if you look back to go back what you were just talking about, say, well, people started to turn on me, I wasn't really improving if you really looked at, okay, when I came in '07 and '08, I mean, I was subpar, comparable to '04, '05, '06, whatever. I wasn't pushing myself beyond, and that's why the fans get disappointed. That's why '09 I came back and I presented a physique that it rivaled anything better than I ever had. So that's when I won the fan base back. And then, of course, that led to 2010. And then, you know, you had Phil Heath coming up. And then I tore the bicep in 11, and that kind of solidified the career right there. Yeah. But I wasn't improving. And I think that's why when I made the decision to step out of the game at 40, I only came back in 13 really because I just felt like I wasn't my best on the last one in 11 when I lost to Phil. I had the torn bicep 3 weeks prior. Yeah. And I really couldn't give it my go, and I really wanted to give the fans something. So, you know, people ask me what was your favorite one. I always mention 13, even though I placed 6, which was terrible for me. But it was something that I really did, and I truly loved bodybuilding, and my dream was to be on the Olympia, and I finished what I thought was a decent package, not my best of all time, but I still was in good shape, and I stepped away from the stage best ability. But I know winning in '06 was huge for me. 7, I had the infection in my shoulder or whatever that affected me there, and then I lost to Dexter in '08, which was devastating to me because my run was so short. Yeah. And then, of course, winning it back 2 times. But I think the fans did love me because I was a second place guy, especially against someone like a beast like Coleman, because you know how tough he was. I mean, if we talked about Coleman in any lineup in today's era, they try to compare and say, hey, how would Phil do, or Sean Roden? Yeah. I mean, come on. It's Ronnie would. It's not even really a conversation, in my opinion.
No, Ronnie would stomp all over these people.
Yeah.
It's no offense to them.
He stomped me. And like I said, humbly, I didn't beat Ronnie Coleman in the 98, 99, 2000 version. I tried like hell, and I wasn't close. So my hat goes off to the Wheelers and Sean Rays and all these people that, listen, Ronnie wasn't his best every single year, but he was still, his 90% or 85% was still better than most everyone's, right? It's kind of like the Phil position against all these other current guys that he competed with. Do I think Phil should have lost any Olympia? Not really. I don't think he should have lost any.
Yeah.
His 90% was still better than Kai Green's whatever he claimed he was.
Right. Did you have Phil winning last year?
You know what? This is the argument I have. I thought Sean looked good. I thought Sean was impressive. Chris Aceto will even argue that Sean's been that good before and he hasn't won. It's just that Phil's genetically better, right?
Yeah.
Phil had a stomach, okay, and he was warned about the stomach from my understanding. He didn't fix the stomach. He came in with a little bloated stomach, and that's what caused, they said, okay, we're just going to give it to Sean. But if he won like that before, what holds him back from winning again? I just think I was there. I was present. It was very, very noticeable. And if you're told, hey, you need to control this, and you're not, then that's a problem, and that's why he lost. So do I agree? I have to agree with the decision because I know I'm not a fan that just shows up at the show and decides, oh, well, so-and-so. I mean, I just know that the stomach was such a distraction, especially as he started breathing heavy and they started working him.
Yeah.
His physique is still ahead of these guys. Like, if you ask me, well, could Phil come back and win it? Absolutely. I think Phil could come back and win it this year. The show, I mean, Phil could have trained for 8 weeks for this show and come back and win it. I don't know what his health is right now, but he literally could have came home from that UK tour and started training and I think win this show.
I mean, he still might. How do we know he's not? Well, you would know, right?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think so from what he's putting out there. I don't see him sucking down. I mean, what is it? How many weeks away? 6 weeks or 7 weeks now?
I think it's under 8 now. I think we're down to
7 weeks. I think
it might be 7 weeks from Friday night. Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's Friday, right?
I wanted him in the show so badly.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about 2009 because 07 and 08 you were off. You admit it, not your best. What was it that was physically, mentally? What changed so that you were able to come back in 09 with that crazy new look where you were streamlined and just definition like we'd never seen before?
Well, I knew it was my last chance. I mean, knew that I was coming towards the end. I think I was 36 at that point. No, I was 37 maybe. And I knew it was coming close to the end. I always thought, okay, a bodybuilder doesn't compete after 40. I mean, that was before the Dexter era, and obviously Sean Roden winning at 40. I didn't think I could I wasn't improving, right? So I was a real test to myself, like, can I improve enough to come back and win this thing? And all these guys started getting hyped, like Kai Green, and Dexter was still getting hyped. He possibly could come win it. Yeah. And then I switched coaches. I worked with Hani for the first time that year, which I worked with Chris Aceto for many years, and we both kind of agreed, like, hey, maybe you should try something else. And I think when you try something else instead of doing the same thing, you come up with a different result. And that result was what I needed, and I came in a lot drier. I did things different. I did more cardio than I ever did, but I ate more than I ever did also. And I kept red meat in my diet and did things that I didn't really necessarily do in the past, where I mostly ate fish and I didn't do as much cardio. I let the training kind of take the body fat off and just dieted for a longer period. But it worked for me. I mean, it was just something different. And I came in with a fuller, harder, much more crisp look, and that's what they were looking for. And I kind of did that quad stomp, and that kind of took care of that.
And you made history. So far, you're the only Mr. Olympia that's ever lost the title and got it back. It could happen again this year with Dexter. That'd be quite a story. But I got to ask you, the two looks people always talk about are 02 Olympia and 09 Olympia. Which one do you prefer out of those two?
Yeah, 01 you mean.
01, yeah.
Yeah, listen, it's a different era. I think 09 is still, if you look at all the merchandise and everything that people talk about 09, it's kind of like what's in the newer generations. They think, okay, well, the guy came back and won it, and they don't even remember 01 because I didn't win. You know what I mean? So they look at, okay, well, I mean, if 01 was so great, then why couldn't I beat the guy, especially after winning prejudging? So people are like, okay, well, 09 has to be better. But more maturity in 09. Although my waist wasn't as small, I had, some bigger body parts, I think. And I think, I was a little harder from behind in 2009. So I think that physique would pretty much, I mean, listen, compare that to any era of bodybuilding, that would pretty much hold, I would be able to stand next to anyone pretty much. Listen, I stood next to Coleman for how many years straight. So you can sit there and say, well, who can stand next to him? I mean, these other guys, the Heaths and Kai Greens and, Sean Rodens, they didn't stand next to Coleman year after year after year. I did.
Yeah. I mean, good Lord. I mean, if it hadn't been for Ronnie, he probably would have won.
Yeah, 10 maybe.
Well, you would have won another 3 or 4 titles. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
I was always curious. You worked with Hani. Did you follow his training protocol too, or did he just handle your diet and stuff?
We did a lot of training together. We did the FST7, which was the failure of the 7 sets, finishing off the body parts, which really kind of something different. Like I said, not today. Say today I follow that training protocol because I don't train as intense. I do mostly just to get function out of the muscle and really just kind of fatigue it a little bit and get out of the gym and feed it. But I trained with him. I flew to Los Gatos where he lived. He came down here. We shot FST7 videos, Phil, him, and I. They all stayed at my house. The original one was filmed at my house. Actually, the interviews were here in my theater. So we did a lot of things together, and we made history. He's a huge part of my success that year. And Phil, you remember he was a front runner. He got sick that year. He finished 5th, I think, or something.
Bad tilapia, I remember.
Yeah, so I mean, it was that could have been 1-2 also, and unfortunately that didn't happen. And then of course 10 he pushed me, and 11 he won it.
Yeah. What if you had never won the Mr. Olympia? I know that's a ridiculous thing, but we have guys like Wheeler, Sean Ray, Kevin Levroni. They're legends. They're still enormously popular. How do you think your career would have been different if you'd never become Mr. Olympia?
It's really hard to say, Ron. No one's ever asked me that question.
Good.
I was super popular. I was as popular, I felt, as Ronnie Coleman was because of the battles, and I kind of solidified myself, no question, the second best in the world. I was winning Arnold every year, and then I was going to Olympia and still placing second every year. So, in today's era, you say, well, who's number 1 and 2 in bodybuilding? If I asked you today, you won't really know because it kind of mix matches, right? And Brandon Curry would be considered right now the runner for the Olympia because he won the Arnold. But listen, Ron, there's been years, Mike Francois won the Arnold one year, and he finished like 7th at the Olympia because there were so many guys like a Ray and Paul Dillette and all these people that didn't do the Arnold that would be your 1, 2, 3, 4. They would be sitting for the Olympia every year. But I was the second place, no question, guy on the planet. So I was traveling event to event, and I think for me, I would have had like that. Like, oh man, if I was so close, and when I won the Olympia, if you remember, I said this is for Sean and Kevin and Flex Wheeler and Nasser somebody, all these guys that didn't win. They were knocking at the door and possibly should have won an Olympia. Yeah. I mean, listen, when I lived in Mass, I used to look at Sean. That physique was perfect in my opinion. He was a huge role model of mine. Early on, I remember seeing that was the dream to me. Like Sean was the epitome of what it was. Lee Labrada, all those guys were just. He was the first bodybuilder I ever met guest posing in Schenectady, New York, and he had a crazy physique. And I remember seeing him and marveling at him for the first time. But I think I wouldn't have been as respected, but I would have been pretty damn popular. I think.
Yeah. It made so much sense to me when you got that ambassador thing for the Olympia, because I always considered you the greatest ambassador of this generation of bodybuilders, because nobody else that I can even think of has traveled as much, has really made an effort to really meet the fans and get to know them. And like you do your Boston show, you do four or 5 shows altogether, but
I do Boston twice.
You do the 2 Boston shows, and man, you sit out there in the lobby and you talk to anyone, you give time to anybody who wants to meet you. You sit there and take pictures. And there's been other top bodybuilders I know that they just wouldn't do that. They'll be out there, and then after like a half hour, like they get antsy and they find the excuse to leave or something. But you were always, to me, that ambassador because the fans felt that you cared about them and you appreciated them, and you loved the sport and you wanted the sport to do well. And we don't have a sport without the fan support, and that's what an ambassador is, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but it's funny, Ron, because when I do those things, I don't necessarily think about us as a whole. I think about what I love and why I started doing this. And I remember going to the shows in Massachusetts and being like, man, like I just loved it as a teenager, right? I didn't get to see a lot, but I remember going to my first one. I think I went in Connecticut for the first one, and I was like, man, this is like awesome. I can't ever imagine being one of these big name people that people are waiting to see. And I'm still like a kid when I go to these things, even though I'm promoting it and I'm like the guy, the face man of it, Yeah. I still feel like, man, I'm just honored to be able to. These are my people, and when I give my speech every year, you don't stick around as long anymore at these shows, but I always give a speech still, and I say, man, you mass people, because listen, you competed in my show a lot. I mean, you were there when I wasn't Jay Cutler Classic, or I mean, it was a New England show. It was in May.
Jimmy Dakotas was a
yeah. So I mean, I became the guest poser there every year, and then eventually took over the show with Steve. And it's just an honor just to be there, man. I love it, and Mass, we have a different mindset at those shows too.
Yeah.
I mean, the fans are just they're the same fans every year, bro. Since I started there in '95, being a guest poser.
Yeah. In some ways, I regret that I was in California in the 90s, because that was kind of the heyday of Massachusetts bodybuilding, the 90s. That's when the Raymond brothers, Matarazzo, all these guys were coming out of so much talent.
Yeah. Paul DeMeo, I mean, he was a huge role model. I mean, this is a guy that, remember, he used to run the jackhammer, and they used to talk about, he competed, and then, he was running the jackhammer on the side to finance himself, and then became a big star and moved to California, and then moved back to Mass, and it was just, his career went in a different direction.
Right.
But Mike, you saw Mike's stardom just go through the roof. I mean, unfortunately, both those guys aren't with us these days, but they were huge role models, both of those guys, to me.
Yeah, I knew Mike a lot better than I knew Paul. Mike was such a cool guy. I love him. Well, let's shift gears. Let's talk a little bit about this Olympia, because I'm already getting excited. There's a few big names missing from the show, but it's still the Olympia. I'm a fan. I love the Mr. Olympia every year. It's something I look forward to see who's going to do what. So who are your front runners? We got, obviously, Brandon Curry and Rolly Winkler are probably the top two guys most people are thinking about. But, I'm hearing a lot of people who've seen Dexter lately and saying, don't forget about Dexter. Dexter could be the next guy to make history. 11 years ago, he lost the title. He won the title 11 years ago. He has a very good chance. How do you think this might shake out with those three guys?
Well, we'll see in a week when Dexter competes, and what he looks like. And I mean, that's not really to say, hey, he's going to stand next to these guys and because he's not against that lineup. But, the big question mark is Dexter's legs, because he had the fuller legs early in his career.
Yeah.
Listen, there's no one more I would want to win the Mr. Olympia than Dexter Jackson, because, he's just come back around and just kind of beat Father Time a little bit. But, he's also developed a huge following. And, also the guy beat me. He's the only guy that really beat me during the reign other than Phil, and Phil's not in the show.
Right.
So I guess it would be, really awesome if he came at 49. I think he's 49 now.
Yeah, he'll be.
And
people keep saying he's 50. He's not 50 yet.
No, not yet. But that would be pretty cool for him. I know he works really hard, and I know he shifted his whole training protocol and the diet. I mean, he's a guy that used to eat McDonald's every day back when he competed with me in those years when I won, and now it's like he follows a super strict diet because he can't get away with that anymore. But, listen, Rolly, Bonnick, Brandon Curry, these are all dangerous bodies up there. I mean, I think if you really laid it out, you kind of named it. It's going to be between Rolly and Brandon Curry, just because those guys are hot right now. They placed, between Rolly last year third, questionably could have beat Phil Heath, from what people say.
Yeah.
Then you got Bonnick, who's been right there every year. He's right. He's obviously has a little less genetics than both those guys because of the height factor.
Right.
But he's thick, man. He's thick.
Yeah.
And after that, I mean, if you ask me who you think the top 3, 4, I mean, I couldn't tell you what the mix-up is.
Yeah, it could go any. After that, you could shuffle it so many different ways.
Nathan DeAsher, you've got Steve Kukalo. I mean, I don't know if Cedric's in the show. I'd have to look and see what the lineup is. Some of these new guys, I mean, we'll see what Luke Sandow looks like in a week. I mean, he was top 3 at the Arnold, Ohio. And then there's some European guys that could be very dangerous. I don't know who the best guy from Europe right now is that's qualified, but there's a lot of good bodies in there.
The one guy I'm curious about, if he can get into the USA, I know Hani's working on it, Dan Solomon's working on it, is Persian Wolf, Hadi Chupan. You know, I've been dying to see this guy in real life.
I mean, he comes in, he wins the 212, there's no question, but if he does the Open, I mean, where's he place? Does he battle Bonnick and these other guys? I mean, that's a big question mark. I think he could be top 5 pretty with that condition that he brought to Vancouver. He's dangerous. Yeah. But that's like, you know, here we are 7 weeks or whatever it is, and we still don't have a confirmation if he can compete or not. He's tried every year. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's good talk. You know, it's good hype for the show.
So here's a question. Say Hadi Chupan gives you a call and say he can speak English all of a sudden. He says, Jay, should I do, I'm getting into the U.S., I got my visa. Should I go in the 212 and get my Olympia title? Or should I go to the Olympia, Mr. Olympia, and, you know, probably 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere in that range? What do you think I should do?
He goes in the Open because, number one, it's financially better sound decision for him. Yeah. And then he's banging heads with big names that he's going to beat a lot of big names. So he is right there. He's hot right now. The Open class is still the king of whether it be guest appearances or endorsement deals. I mean, that 212 division, listen, Flex ruled it for many years. He became popular because he won it every year. But, you know, the kid that got second last year, Lunsford, I mean, he's new. I don't know, you know, there's other guys that are in that division that have been around for quite some time, and they're just not getting the business that you would get as an Open competitor. I mean, this Chupan guy is just, he's massive, you know. I mean, I still can't believe he can get to 212.
Yeah. I mean, he's you know, it's no disrespect. I love Derek. I think Derek's going to be great. He needs more maturity, more detail before I'm really seeing him as dominant. Yeah. And like you said, we got Eduardo Correa, who's been up top there, David Henry. We got some guys that have been, that Kamal guy who did pretty well last year. But Hadi is just, if he gets in and he decides to do 212,
he needs to do the Open, you know. They should let him do both, maybe.
I mean, that'd be too good to be true.
Yeah.
The last thing I'm going to ask you about is Classic, because I don't know how closely you follow Classic, but Breon's 2-time champ. He's coming in to try to get 3 in a row.
Looks crazy this year, Ron.
Yeah. You've seen him recently?
Yeah, we talked, but I saw him, listen, I shot him for my channel, 10 weeks out, and he was in great condition for 10 weeks.
Yeah. He looks bigger and fuller to me.
He repeats. In my opinion, he repeats. I don't know if Bumstead's... Is Bumstead doing the show?
As far as I know, I haven't heard anything differently.
I mean, I know there was some health issues last year, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's been knocking the door every year, but Breon's just, I mean, he's proven now. Like, he won 2. Everyone kind of ruled him out and said, oh, Bumstead's going to push him. And he brought the package, you know.
It's a total package that the judges look for, no matter what division. And yeah, Breon's got everything. He's not lacking anything. And, you know, Bumstead.
He's not letting up. He's training his ass off, which I love to see. He's hungry. We talked several times about the title and what it meant to him, and you know, he's not slowing down right now. So I'm excited to see him up there.
Okay. I want to direct everyone to share some mutual respect here. Jay Cutler TV, man, it's come so far so fast as far as the quality of content that you put out. So respect, man. It's Jay Cutler TV is probably one of the best bodybuilding channels on YouTube.
you know, we got Dave shooting at Venice, so it's kind of like keeping up to date on who's coming in and out of there, pretty much. But I'm just trying to give these guys a platform. You know, I put out a lot of content myself, just my lifestyle stuff that a lot of my fans like to see. But more importantly, I'm putting out a platform now. We almost have 300,000 subscribers now, and it's growing. We grow tremendously every week. But we're giving a platform to these newer people that do not have the eyes on them that will have the opportunity to, you know, be present and show a little bit of their training and what they're all about. And I think that's important nowadays. I mean, I'm just trying to be a media outlet without really, you know, hey, you know, it's just kind of nonchalant, right? It's just very raw. And we have a guy present in California. We're going to these different shows, so I try to grab interviews with people, and obviously I try to do some too with the person. But it's been great so far, and you know, Dave works really hard on that channel. He's been by my side since 2001, and I appreciate that. So thanks for the shout out,
Dave Bourlet. I'm admiring Dave.
He's bodybuilding's #1 fan. You know that.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to be. You can't. I don't know how anybody can. There are some people in this media that I've met that I can tell that it's a job to them, and they don't have any passion for it. Some of them don't train or anything. I don't know how they do it. I would have quit years ago if that was me. I couldn't keep doing this. You have to love it, and you still love it. You still have a passion for it, for the athletes, for the sport, and that's, you know, people can sense that. That's one reason people gravitate toward you. You're not in this just for clicks or the dollars. You know, you love this. And that's why you keep doing it. You could retire and do real estate or something. You could do anything you want at this point in life. You could walk away from this sport any day you decide, but you don't. So I think it's commendable that you stay part of this industry. You stay a vital part of the industry with the show promotion, with everything on YouTube, and Dan Solomon, you made a great pick with this guy, because Jay is an ambassador to the core. I
just love it. Like I said, Ron, I appreciate that, but I just love it. But listen, I can't thank the people around me enough. I mean, there's so many people that make it so much easier for me. And you know, listen, my dream was to win the Miss Olympia. You know, coming from Mass, like, we looked at that title as like, man, this is the end all of everything, right? Yeah. I trained amongst the greats. My dream was to be in California. I did that, and I was able to migrate to Vegas, and I'm still in California every other week, pretty much. I do travel out there. I do a lot of content there. Yeah. It still gives me, when I walk through the front doors of Gold's Venice, Ron, I still get that feeling like the first time at 19, I remember walking in there being like, this is it. Like, I remember, you know what's funny? I walked through the front doors of Gold's Venice, and I remember thinking in my head, okay, I found what I want the rest of my life to be. And that's what, the first time I walked in there, I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be a professional body. That's when I really, truly said, I'm going to pursue professional bodybuilding.
Were you 21 years old at the time?
I was 19.
19, wow. Okay, well.
And I won. Boston Globe had a misprint for 2 round-trip tickets. It was $99 round trip on American Air. It was US Air at the time. Yeah. And I took advantage of that, and that's when Kerry and I made the trip out there for the first time. It was awesome. Wow. And we saw Gold's Gym, and then met Ed Connors, and I saw every great out there, man. Yeah. It saw every professional, and I said, man, this is what I want to do. It's for the '93 USA.
That's right. Yeah, that was those are the years when you could walk into Gold's Venice back then, and it was like walking into a magazine. You'd see a pro here, there. If you hung out for a few hours, you'd see 20, 30 pros easily.
I tell people it was, you know what, when you go to Gold's Venice, it's like a bodybuilding expo. You can sit outside on the bench and watch so-and-so walk by, then this guy. Like, you literally could see people that you see in media or famous people, like, in 10 minutes, you could see 10 different people, you know, and then you used to see like NBA players, like Ron Harper used to train there from the Lakers. I mean, Kobe trained there, Magic Johnson. Every actor was there. I mean, you remember, it was crazy. I mean, Arnold's still there every day at 7 in the morning. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, that's just where they all migrate. I think it was a little hotter back then. Like, it was much more people. Right. And the outfits were outlandish. You remember all the crazy outfits?
We used to wear them all.
I know, I know. I mean, they migrated to the East Coast, and I mean, I remember thinking, oh my, Atomics, which now I'm a part of that. Like, I remember owning my first pair of Atomics, and I'm like, okay, I'm officially a bodybuilder because I have Atomic shoes, you know?
My Hotskins tights,
Yeah.
my T. Michael top. Oh,
You
those
probably still have those in your
I
closet.
wish I did. Oh, I wish I still did. She threw them out on me. Damn it. I had some awesome T. Michael tops.
Yeah, I used to cut the tops, and I had the string tank tops, and I tied it.
Everybody did the boat necks. Remember those?
Yeah,
Yeah, the World Gym and the Gold's Gym boat necks, and then you'd have the string tanks.
yeah.
Yeah, I honestly feel sorry for these guys today that they didn't get any of that. They didn't get to experience that because it was a magic time for me anyway.
Yep.
So, all right, Jay Cutler, thank you so much taking the time, taking us down memory lane, and making your picks for this year's Olympia. I wouldn't want it from anybody else because I know you always have some really cool insights. So everybody check him out on Jay Cutler TV on YouTube. Any other social media or anything you need to get people?
No, just Jay Cutler Instagram. I mean, my Facebook, Jay Cutler 4X. I mean, you guys know where to find me. I'm the other guy other than the football player.
That's right. And I don't follow football, so he doesn't exist in my world. All right. Everybody, thank you for watching the Ronline Report with four-time Mr. Olympia and Olympia Ambassador Jay Cutler. We'll see you next time.